Welcome back to the Initializing AI Podcast. This is Ep.5, and I'm Meenakshi, one of the hosts, along with Mayuresh Krishna, CTO and co-founder of Initialize.ai. Hi, MK. How have you been?
I'm great, Nakshi. It's great to talk to you again.
Today, we are going to tackle a topic that's quietly transforming how AI systems work behind the scenes. Spoiler alert, it's not just about making chatbots smarter.
Yeah, and if you're still using hard-coded API calls and calling it AI, we need to talk.
And that talk we will today. So, yeah, we are diving into agentic workflows today and inspecting what they are, how they are different from your old school automations, and a little bit of a recap on the context protocol or MCP, which makes it all actually work. Oh, and we'll also break down the new comet launched by Perplexity. So, buckle up.
Yeah, I'm excited about
First,
that.
yeah, like it's an exciting thing. Like a lot of my own colleagues were like in the wait list, and like they were so excited to test it out and like see how it goes. So
Yeah, I
did
was.
you sign up for it?
We'll touch upon that, but I sat on the wait list and I decided to I want to try it out, so I paid for it.
All right, we'll get to it, but like let's start at the very beginning. When we say traditional automation, what exactly do we mean here, MK?
I think traditional automation like Zapier flows, right? And specifically if you're talking about workflows, right? It's almost like you know what's going to be your output in a sense of like it's not going to kind of go to completely new path. You have a very defined path for it to complete, but it's rigid. It cannot do things with additional context. If it encounters new things and its path, it cannot do anything about it, right? So it's almost like you have a typed constraint based system where it goes through the flow and it stops. But if you think about agents, the construct is the agents have agency, and what that means is it can reason, it can think, and it can take decisions based on what it understands. One of the comparison I could do is like workflow or automation traditionally has been like a vending machine, and agents are like concierge where it can actually do things based on the context and understand and give you a more concierge experience.
Yeah, I guess that does make sense. Like, for example, it's like, traditional automation was more of a straightforward, but like, it lacked like the interpretation layer that, say, ChatGPT gives you. Like, ChatGPT seems to be thinking on its own as well. Like, it's very visible in the way we interact with both systems as well. Like, when you're coding something, it's more like you're giving a very, input output kind of a logic or like very strict code or
Mhm.
instruction. However, when you're talking to ChatGPT, you get to like sort of set a goal and let it arrive there as well, and I find that fascinating, honestly. So what else would you say is a key difference though?
One of the things which you touched upon is that in more of a agentic construct, instead of you giving it these typed instruction, you give it a goal, right? And as we talked about earlier, that when in a rigid workflow, something new comes up, it just stops. Either it will fail, it will stop, or it will only deliver what you have instructed it to do. Uh, with agentic construct, and we've seen this in enterprise scenarios now, that enterprises are building these traditional automation. You can think of it as a continuous investment to create new automation. But with agentic, the construct has come where uh, you set a goal. You ask it that this is my goal. I want to achieve this. You give the agent a set of tools and the connections, make it available to it based on permissions, and the agent will keep on looking for ways to make that happen. Right. So the agent will go through kind of a loop construct of, okay, I'm going to try this. What was the result? Reason with the result and see if I need some additional information. If not, then I'm going to try this something else, and we'll try to get to the goal. And that's one of the biggest thing which we're seeing in enterprises is where we are trying to go with agentic workflow. That instead of building hundreds of rigid workflows from automation perspective, can we build systems which can intelligently figure out the path to take based on the goal you're setting for achieving something?
And I think one of the coolest ways in this like whole fluidity or like flexibility has manifested is the Comet launch, right? I
Absolutely.
There's like so much you can do with it. Can you give us a few examples how that is like completely different from regular say search or like regular like applications? Like
Yeah. So, in my mind, and again, I do not have access to the tech behind it, but based on the understanding and based on what things that you have been working on, the what I saw in Comet, it's like an agent router of sorts, right? Think of it as like Comet is a system which has access to multiple things. For example, it could have access to computer use or browser. It could have access to making API calls. It could have access to CLI. It could have access to multiple tools under the umbrella. And as you are browsing something and you want to ask something about the content, about doing something, you can make that ask, and Comet will use the tools and the agents available to it to achieve that, right? So it's almost like a manager to an extent, right? Or think of it like an engineering lead to an extent, that I'm going to do certain tasks myself. I'm going to give certain tasks to Anakshi and say, okay, I need this. Can you give me information and do this task for me? Come back. Then I'm going to go to Inakshi is great at front end. I'm going to go to a database engineer to get some data thing from database. Take that, do some task on it, and go to the next step. So it's almost like it's working as an agent
PA.
working with multiple agents, right, to achieve the outcome. So yeah, it's very fascinating. I'm not saying that it's completely novel. The OpenAI's construct of computer use was kind of going in. Even OpenAI launched computer use recently with the agent construct, which is in a similar direction if you think of it, right? Not as a browser, but as like Chat GPT doing that for you. But I think the game changer with Comet is it is kind of gotten to a stage where it's going to replace your Chrome browser to be an intelligent concierge of sorts, right? Uh, it's no
So
longer about
what
think,
all are its features basically? Like, as in, like, to what extent is it able to access our data? Like, in a way, it's an agent that's getting access to literally everything, right? So, like,
yeah, yeah.
is there
So,
any way to, like, sort of restrict the access or,
see, the access it will have is what you give, right? It's similar to, for example, like I go to Chrome browser and I log into a website and do something, or it completely is dependent on you what access you're giving to it. I would say it's a little more than, like, for example, in a browser, you're not giving access or your information for everything to the browser. But like, for example, you're saving your passwords in Google Chrome, right? So you're giving your passwords of all these websites or different things if you're using the Google Chrome password manager. um, Not exact same thing from the perspective of what access you're giving, but you're giving your credentials, right? If you're comfortable storing your credentials with Chrome browser, you should be maybe we'll get comfortable giving access to Perplexity Comet agents or logins to different systems, right? But it's completely dependent on what you give to it, right? And
right?
if you don't give that particular thing to it, then it will prompt you to go log in, right? The things which you want to control yourself, uh, the agent will stop and ask you to do that step, uh, and then you proceed. The agent proceeds. So right, so it makes it. It is not rigid that it needs to have access to everything, right? But if you want full, you can say agency and automation, then you give everything to it, and it will do it for you.
Sounds kind of scary, but this also makes me wonder what is your take on, like, whether this is basically still a search engine, or do you think we are seeing the foundation of like true agent first software?
I would say perplexity to begin with was the idea of like how do we make search engine something else, in terms of
Yeah.
that instead of it being just a search engine, it becomes an answer engine. But now with Comet, we're going like for the next step of construct of using internet. In a sense, if you really think of it in terms of like what general user does on internet is browse to an extent, right? Whether you're browsing and doing things on a web browser, or you're going to use some of your apps, but the majority of world browses over the internet, and this is completely changing how you use internet for majority of the human being, right?
it's in a very weird gray area from my perspective, as in
Mhm.
like it's not just browsing either, right? It's not really
Right.
just a search
Agreed.
engine anymore. It's not something that you're actively controlling. However,
Yeah.
you still have some sort of control, and you're getting your things done, tasks done.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's like, honestly, in my opinion, it seems like the beginning of like properly agent controlled devices, honestly. Like it's gonna expand till devices, right?
Is going to help companies like us who does B2B agentic workflows, because it is making users used to the
Yeah.
construct of agents, right? Somebody having an agency over you, right?
Yeah.
You give it a goal and it does for you. Now, if in your day-to-day life you get used to that construct, then you won't be that opposed to having that in the enterprise workflows, right? The you can say the level of acceptance of, you know, a bit more probabilistic way of doing things will become more acceptable, and that's what I'm excited about. This is that this kind of adoption will make a mind shift. We do still want protections and guardrails and things like that, but it will open up the thought process of everyone, or that user behavior, that okay, I'm okay with allowing a bit more agency to my enterprise workflows as well.
Yeah, that's really true. Like, because in a way, this might actually pave the way for like even agent to agent communication, right? Like
Yeah.
agents architecting themselves, for example. So, yeah, that seems to be like the way anyway. Like, it's like, uh, from the tech point of view, like, what exactly do you think went into creating an agentic agent like this? Like, on a scale like this, because I think Initialize is also working on a similar front, right?
If you really think of it, the way I compare it is, you have one which is agentic workflow, and then you can consider something which is like agents by itself.
Yeah.
Agents is more kind of, which has more agency to it. It is more probabilistic. Agentic workflow, to an extent, it's more of, can I still be a bit more deterministic but take help of constructs like LLMs, right? There's a really good blog from Anthropic about building agents, and if you read that, it's more of like going across the this dimension of whether you want deterministic answers or you want more agency, and depending on where you are in that umbrella, is how more agentic your system is, right? Uh,
Right.
you go all the way to deterministic, you might not have anything which is agentic about it. It's a rigid workflow. You add certain things to it. For example, I get information from some integration point, and I'm going to summarize it using LLM, right? You add a mix of probabilistic nature to it and agency to it. So one of the common themes which we have seen so far is that rigid workflows have some of these language model constructs added to it. That's what we have seen majority of tools as well as companies doing. Uh, our goal is to be on a bit more common side of construct, right?
Okay.
Where
Uh,
the agents which we build in the workflow are able to kind of take decisions, and you kind of give it access to systems and functions and tools for it to decide what it can do, right? It's not like open for all sort of thing construct. An agent can do anything it wants under the umbrella, but you give it control access, but you let it think by on itself to see how it achieves a goal, and that's a shift which we are going to see on the enterprise workflows, and that's where we are going from the technology perspective as well.
So, regardless of the extent of agency that these workflows or agents have, I'm sure a lot of context modeling or like context feeding is involved in these in the training of such models, right? And when I hear context, my mind goes straight to the model context protocol now, especially after the last episode that we talked on. So, to what extent and how and where do you think the MCP comes into the picture here?
MCP has pretty much become a standard now, right? And it's basically how models learn to talk to your tools, right? How does it connect to a particular integration? How it can interact with it? What kind of data it can send to it? What are the different functions available to it? Think of it as like it's a you go to a restaurant, you get a menu, and you can see what you can do with it, or what you can order. So that's what MCP is doing for the models.
Absolutely makes sense. And I suppose it also introduces a sort of interoperability between models and the APIs that are being called, right?
Yeah, it almost standardizes how models would discover, understand, and invoke external tools. Right? It creates that ability for these models to be able to interoperate across different, uh, say, model types. For example, OpenAI models would be able to talk to APIs and integrations the same way Meta Llama models, right? So this ability to be able to be able to talk to any of these integrations through this one single standard construct is like the important piece in this whole agentic workflow construct, right? With agents trying to now integrate with any of these systems and have that agency to be able to determine like what needs to do. It needs that standard way of kind of understanding how to talk to it, right? So we kind of moving away from very typed coded rigid interfaces to more uh, model legible interfaces, right? Like model can understand what are these interfaces.
Okay, so let's say I create like an agentic workflow on like Initialize on .ai itself and like give it access to all sorts of things like say my CRM, email, or like different things. What would you say is like the range of actions or like use cases where I could actualize this?
Even when we are talking about giving agency to to the agents and giving it access to the tools and let it determine what it needs to do, that access control is still in your hands, right? We are deciding what access we are giving to a particular agent, and we're deciding how much okay we are with the probabilistic approach of agents taking or doing things. So some of that aspect plus the additional construct of applying security and guardrails to it, uh, you can actually start building out some very interesting use cases. These agents are kind of are able to act like humans, right? As a human, a very simple example I'll give you, which we're working on in enterprise, is uh, and it is a very common use case in support. uh, Ticket comes in, the first level one support engineer or support agent goes and triages and sees who does this ticket need to go to, right? If it's an engineering problem, then needs to go to the engineering team. If something related to business, then it goes to the product business team. Is there infrastructure problem that goes to the cloud team or the infra team? So you do that first set of triage. Then based on that, you route it to these different teams. And then when it goes to, say, engineering team, the first thing engineering team looks at it, okay, I'm going to look at the information provided. I'm going to look at maybe some logs which are uploaded and do the next step. Uh, think of it as like now with agents, you are giving it access to your ticketing system. You're giving it access to any other knowledge bases you might have to determine this. And you're saying that as an agent, you can talk to, an engineering agent. You can talk to infrastructure agent. You can also talk to a business agent. Over here, when we're talking to these external systems like uh, Jira or support system, we're using MCP to talk to it, right? Get all the tickets, do something with it. And then when we are going to talk to other agents, we are talking through A2A sort of protocol, right? And saying, okay, I took the tickets from support system, I analyzed the ticket as an agent, and then I figured out that this should belong to engineering team. So I will use again MCP to assign this ticket to engineering team, as well as now talk to the engineering agent and see if it can do my work, do this work. Right now, the ball goes to the engineering agent, and this agent is kind of waiting for that engineering agent to do the work and come back and give me some response. Right. So, uh, and not that it's waiting in a block way. It's more of like, okay, I've handed over the task to you. Once you are done with it, I'm going to provide more updates back to the um, other systems if I need to.
That sounds fascinating, honestly, and also very intricate. On like, at least from an individual point of view, it seems like a lot of interconnectedness is going to go into workflows now. But like, I guess instead of teams interacting, it will be agents interacting, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. And that's the goal, right? That the agents can do the work the way you would do as people.
Which also makes me wonder from an external point of view, like what would you say are like the component wise areas where say the MCP is more vulnerable to attacks from say outside, like,
Yeah,
and what kind of like basically function level safety rails should we look at if we want to achieve this autonomy?
well, the main aspect which has been now solved for by the MCP specification is the overall security and authentication and authorization. And MCP released the security specification. Now you have the auth specification on MCP, and we at Initialize, our MCP servers are kind of backed by that secure auth layer using OAuth. Any interaction our workflow is doing with any of these API systems through our MCP servers has OAuth built to it and an authentication layer built to it. So you can talk to any of these, or agents can talk to any of these integrations, but it has to kind of bring that authenticate itself to be able to do it. It has to be driven by what permissions you give to it. And it's not just that, okay, I'm going to make these tools available to the agents or through MCP, but it also requires the agent to authenticate itself. That one, I can see these tools, and two, I have access to these tools through authentication.
That sounds really interesting. And it's also sort of inching more towards like the whole idea of agents being able to write and route their own workflows, right? It sort of forms that whole inception type scenario where maybe agent one will be creating another agent B and like they're all just doing
Absolutely.
it.
And that's not too far away. I mean, I think
Yeah.
we're already talking about scenarios where uh, if an agent needs to do a task and it does not have either an integration point or another agent to do that task, can an agent actually use a coding agent to be able to code that construct and then use it, right? So you're not too far from like the inception becoming reality, where uh, agents will metamorphosis into creating its own agents to be able to do things which we didn't initially think about doing. Again, we'll definitely have guardrails in place to be able to what it is allowed to do and not. But as humans, we progress to trust the systems and the agentic systems more. We will allow some of these things to happen, and eventually get to a point where a lot of automation which we are trying to build right now, or workflows which we're trying to build right now, will get built automatically uh, just by setting the goals, right? When we're doing these goals, we are saying that I'm giving you access to these things. Uh, Along with that, we can start saying that, okay, I'm giving you access to these things, and I'm also giving you the authority or agency to be able to build new things to be able to achieve this. That'll be interesting.
See, yeah, and it's almost as if we are seeing the whole concept of automation rewriting itself.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, but it's also very fast in my opinion. So, like within the next say 2 years or so, where do you see this whole concept of agent to agent communication going?
I think we're already here. So if you
Can you
think
give
of
me
it,
some examples?
we're seeing that becoming mainstream through Comet, right? The enterprises might go after maybe 6 months to a year to maybe few years of delay uh, of of large scale adoption at enterprise level. User and human level adoption will happen because of these, consumer level apps and experiences changing towards something like Comet. Right now, think of it like you as a user when you get so comfortable and used to a construct like Comet, uh, the enterprises you're going to work with, you'll be much more open of to adopting that, as we were talking about that earlier. We're seeing Comet becoming a mainstream construct where agent to agent interaction is happening. And again, this is like the first launch of Comet. Think about it where Comet would be in 3 to 6 months. And Comet being just one example, right? Well, Google will also come back with its own agentic browser. There are other players in the market who are doing similar things. So see how mainstream that will get in your experience. The business level might lag behind, but consumer experience is going to is what is going to open that up prices to be able to do that.
So what I'm hearing is agents over scripts, MCP as the translator, and something like Comet as the coordinator, right? That's how our future looks like.
Absolutely. If you're building in this space, now it's the time to lay the right foundations. And that's what we are trying to do. We're trying to build agentic workflows and agents with that foundation in mind, instead of kind of tweaking my traditional workflows to have an LLM step in it, right?
Yeah, so do check out initialize.ai and like see all the cool stuff that we have been up to. And before we wrap up, I would like to urge our viewers to sort of comment their thoughts and just note about the rapid changes that are happening in the actualization of agentic workflows, and maybe even share their workflows gone wrong stories. See you next time on Initializing AI. See you
Thank
next
you.
time.
Bye. See you.
Yeah.
Build on Initialize. Try it today.